I was traumatized at a party, but instead of helping me, my older brothers made fun of me for it and dismissed it. I decided to help myself, and after healing on my own, I started telling my brothers what I really think of them. The truth hit them like a slap to the face and they were not happy. I hate my family. I'm the oldest of 6 siblings, all of them are boys, and because my mom is dead, I was the woman of the house, so to speak. But not in the way you're thinking, because it wasn't like I was treated worse than them. Quite the opposite, actually. Even though they were all younger than me, they went out of their way to make sure I was okay. Whenever I had a party to go to, or hadn't come home by 11 p.m., one of them always insisted on driving me home. And they never once shied away from buying me new tampons or picking up new makeup for me. It felt like I had a family of my own personal bodyguards. So when I was at a frat party one day with my friends, I wore exactly what I wanted without a care in the world, ripped jeans and a crop top. And it was my first real party since I turned 21, so I drank 2 tequila shots. I would have drank more, but I didn't want to be out of control. Plus, my friends were already acting pretty crazy. But as I danced to Disturbia by Rihanna, I felt a guy come up behind me and pull my waist into his hips. I didn't even want to look at him, because he smelled of devil's lettuce and alcohol. It was disgusting. But before I got the chance to push him off me, I felt myself being helplessly dragged into a dark, empty room. Panic filled my body as I heard the door lock behind me, and when I turned to look at him, the light from the window shone onto his face. My blood went cold, because I'd seen him before, in my lectures, wherever I ate, on the bus home. This was the same guy that my friends convinced me wasn't stalking me. The next 10 minutes were the most terror-filled moments of my life. His eyes locked with mine. I couldn't move any part of my body. I couldn't even scream. When he was done with me, he just pulled out and left. I turned over onto my side and texted my brother to come pick me up. Tears were streaming down my face. None of my friends were even looking for me. When my brother came, I ran into the car and completely broke down and spilled the truth. I knew as soon as you left the house in that outfit something bad would happen. But hey, at least now you've learned your lesson. Through my tears, I just stared at him and hoped that this was some weird male humor. But then he just kept driving, acting like I had just told him that my crush rejected me. My heart broke. I checked my phone, and still none of my friends had noticed I left. When I got home, I wanted nothing more than to just run up to my room and cry under my sheets. And that's exactly what I did. Until my brother started telling all my other brothers what happened. Immediately, a conversation broke out into how much I deserved it. And soon, one brother even chimed in saying, I feel like if I was R-worded, I would just choose to take it as a compliment. Another laughed and said, hey, the universe was just teaching her modesty the hard way. Better late than never. Then they all burst out laughing like it was the funniest thing they've ever heard. At this point, my face was throbbing from how hard I'd been crying. But then I stopped. Not because I wasn't upset. I absolutely was. It was one of the most painful moments of my life. But through all the pain, I realized something. My family thought they knew me, but they were about to find out otherwise. Because I'm not the kind of woman who falls apart when pushed. I'm the kind that teaches people not to underestimate her. I finally called our Aunt Zoe, Mom's sister, desperate for someone who might actually care. She was horrified by my brother's reaction, but lived across the country and couldn't travel immediately. Instead, she helped me find a local women's support group, promising to visit as soon as she could arrange it. I snuck out to my first support group meeting the following week, lying to my brothers about having a study session. Walking into that room of strangers was terrifying, but not as scary as going back home. As other women shared their stories, I had intense flashbacks to my assault. My heart raced so fast I almost bolted for the door. A counselor named Onyx noticed and quietly sat beside me, just being present until I could breathe normally again. She didn't push me to share but gave me her card with her cell number. Call anytime, she said, even if you just need silence on the other end. That simple kindness broke something in me. It was more support than my own family had offered. After the meeting, Onyx suggested I file a police report, but I was paralyzed with fear that my brothers would find out and blame me even more. They'd already made it clear whose side they were on. I decided to document everything privately first. The assault, their reactions, everything, while building my independence. I needed money to eventually move out, but my part-time campus job barely covered my textbooks. I started applying for remote work I could do from my bedroom. Data entry, transcription, anything that would help me save without my brothers noticing. My brother Dale noticed I wasn't eating family meals anymore, but instead of showing concern, he accused me of being dramatic and attention-seeking. I started keeping protein bars and snacks hidden in my room, seriously, like I was some prisoner, avoiding the dinner table where they'd make casual jokes about my assault. One night I heard them laughing about how I finally got some action and should lighten up. I recorded it on my phone, hands shaking with rage and hurt. I reconnected with my childhood friend Amber, who had survived something similar years before. When I shared my brother's reactions, she was so furious she wanted to drive over and confront them immediately. I had to talk her down. My plan required patience, not confrontation. I needed to be strategic about dismantling the control they'd had over me for years. My counselor suggested journaling as therapy, but I was terrified my brothers would read anything I wrote. They'd already accidentally gone through my phone twice since the assault, checking my texts under the guise of making sure I was okay. Instead, I created an anonymous blog detailing my experience without names or specific locations. It felt safer to put my pain somewhere outside my body, somewhere they couldn't touch. My post about victim blaming went unexpectedly viral in campus circles. The comments were mostly supportive until someone wrote, "This happened at the Sigma party last month, right? I saw that guy following you." I panicked and almost deleted everything. If they could identify me, my brothers might find it too. My youngest brother Sean found me crying over the comment and assumed I was still being emotional about the assault. He awkwardly patted my shoulder and said I should get over it already, because dwelling on it only gives that guy power over you. His dismissal sparked something in me. If they couldn't see what they were doing through love or empathy, maybe they needed to experience it themselves. The thought was small at first, just a flicker of an idea, but it grew stronger every time they dismissed me. Executing this plan required resources I didn't have, so I reached out to the Campus Victims Advocate program, pretending it was for a friend. The advocate saw through this immediately, but respected my boundaries. She connected me with free therapy and legal counsel that wouldn't appear on any insurance my brothers might monitor. Attending these appointments meant explaining my absences, so I created a fake study group schedule and even made fake flyers in case they checked. I started recording my brother's comments about my assault on my phone. "Emma's always been dramatic," Dale would say when he thought I couldn't hear. "She probably led the guy on," Alex would add. Listening to these recordings made me physically ill, so I asked Amber to transcribe and save them for me. We were building evidence, though I wasn't yet sure how I'd use it. My therapist helped me recognize that my brother's behavior was deeply rooted in toxic ideas they'd learned from our father, who'd raised them after Mom died. Understanding this didn't make their betrayal hurt less, but it helped me develop a two-part plan: healing myself and opening their eyes to what they'd done. I decided to find my assailant on campus to file a report, but when I finally spotted him, he was talking casually with my brother Drax outside the science building. They were laughing like old friends. I later discovered they were lab partners, which complicated everything. I confronted Drax about knowing Tyler, my assailant. His response was casual, dismissive. "Tyler's a good guy, just got carried away. You were dressed pretty hot that night." I secretly recorded this conversation on my phone, adding it to my growing collection of evidence. Building a support network outside my family became crucial, but most of my friends had abandoned me after the party. Some believed rumors that I'd made it up for attention. Others just found it uncomfortable to be around me now. I joined several campus support groups where I met Harper, a law student specializing in sexual assault cases. She was fierce, determined, and exactly the ally I needed. Harper offered to help me understand my legal options against both Tyler and potentially my brothers for their emotional abuse. Since my brothers monitored my phone bills, we communicated through a secret email account I accessed only from campus computers. She sent me resources on family estrangement, victims' rights, and restraining orders, just in case things escalated. My therapy sessions were intense, forcing me to process not just the assault, but how my brothers had controlled me for years. I experienced such intense anger that sometimes I couldn't function, sitting in my car screaming into a pillow before driving home. My brother Jamie noticed my changing behavior and demanded to know where I was going several times a week. His concern felt possessive, not protective. I created elaborate alibis for my therapy and support group meetings, pretending I was getting tutoring for classes I was actually acing. I discovered my middle brother Alex was spreading rumors that I had made up the assault for attention after being rejected by Tyler. Confronting him directly would reveal my knowledge of their private conversations, so I started keeping meticulous records of every comment they made, building my case silently. Meanwhile, Tyler began appearing near my classes more frequently. He'd smile when we made eye contact, knowing I'd freeze up. Campus security wouldn't help without evidence of harassment, so I started documenting every sighting with timestamps and locations in a spreadsheet Harper helped me create. I found a part-time job at a women's resource center off campus, which became my sanctuary away from home. The director, Renee, recognized the signs of my situation immediately and took me under her wing. My new job meant missing family dinner 3 nights a week, which triggered my brothers to call a family meeting to discuss my concerning behavior. During the meeting, I maintained composure while they lectured me about family obligations and how I was pulling away. Dale suggested I might be hanging around bad influences who were encouraging my victim mentality. They demanded I quit my job and spend more time at home where they could keep an eye on me. I pretended to agree while secretly continuing my work. My counselor suggested family therapy might help bridge the communication gap, but I knew my brothers would never agree to sit in a room where their behavior would be questioned. I decided to build my case more thoroughly before attempting any kind of reconciliation. While searching for Mom's old photo albums in the attic, I discovered her journals. Reading them revealed that our father had been equally dismissive when she reported harassment at her workplace years ago. "No one will believe you anyway," he told her when she wanted to file a complaint. I realized the cycle of dismissing women's experiences ran generations deep in our family. I wanted to connect more with Mom's side for support, but most lived far away. I began weekly video calls with Aunt Zoe, who shared stories about Mom I'd never heard. How she'd stood up to Dad, how she'd planned to leave him before her illness. "Your mother would be burning that house down right now if she knew how they treated you," Aunt Zoe told me. "She wanted so much more for you than to be controlled by men, even if they're your brothers." Aunt Zoe offered to let me move in with her in Colorado, but leaving suddenly would mean giving up on changing my brother's perspectives. I decided to stay and follow through with my developing plan. I wasn't just doing this for myself anymore, but for Mom too. I developed closer friendships with other survivors in my support group, particularly with Zara and Monica, who became my strongest allies. Becoming visibly associated with them risked my brothers discovering my activities, so we met discreetly and communicated through encrypted messaging apps. My grades began suffering from the emotional strain of maintaining my double life. Academic probation would give my brothers more control, allowing them to argue I needed more supervision. I sought accommodations through the Disability Services Office, providing just enough information about family trauma without revealing the full situation. 3 months after my assault, I finally felt strong enough to file a police report. The responding officer was dismissive, asking why I'd waited so long and what I'd been wearing. Harper immediately stepped in, connecting me with Detective Martinez, who specialized in sexual assault cases. She took my case seriously, listening without judgment and promising to follow up on every lead. The detective soon found another victim of Tyler's with a story disturbingly similar to mine. Building a case would take time, so I continued strengthening myself while waiting. I discovered through a toxicology report I'd requested that Tyler had drugged me at the party. The test was expensive, but Aunt Zoe had helped me pay for it. When I shared this proof with my brothers, their response was still victim blaming. You shouldn't have accepted drinks from strangers. That's when I realized they might never truly understand unless they experienced similar dismissal. I decided to create an anonymous survey about sexual assault attitudes on campus, but needed help distributing it widely. I partnered with Professor Winters in the Gender Studies department to make it part of a legitimate research project. My brother Dale unwittingly completed the survey in his psychology class. He came home ranting about the idiots who don't understand consent, revealed in the aggregated results. I carefully asked him about his own survey responses. He proudly described answers that directly contradicted how he treated me. I recorded our conversation as evidence of his cognitive dissonance, how he could hold progressive views in theory but fail to apply them to his own sister. I wanted to show all my brothers this disconnection between their stated beliefs and actions, but direct confrontation might push them away. I developed a more subtle approach, planning to use their own words against them. I created a podcast series with Harper about family responses to sexual assault, disguising identifying details while sharing real experiences. Our podcast gained campus popularity and was featured in the university newspaper. My brother Sean was assigned to write a response piece for his journalism class. He unknowingly criticized his own behavior in his article, writing passionately about how families should support survivors rather than blame them. He brought his article home, proud of his progressive stance, and asked for my feedback. I carefully highlighted passages that directly contradicted how he had treated me. This part where you say, victim blaming is never acceptable. That's interesting considering what you said to me after my assault. Sean became uncomfortable with the parallels I was drawing, but dismissed them as different situations. That was family stuff, not like a real article, he argued. I asked him hypothetical questions that gradually led him to question his own attitudes. So victim blaming is wrong in newspapers but okay at the dinner table? I wanted to use Sean's emerging awareness to influence the others, but he was the youngest and least respected among my brothers. I needed a strategy to reach Jamie, the oldest and most influential. My opportunity came when Jamie's girlfriend Lexi came to dinner. The assault topic arose when Sean mentioned his article, and my brothers made their usual dismissive jokes. Lexi's face showed visible discomfort, her fork pausing midway to her mouth. I approached her privately afterward while she helped me with dishes. Lexi revealed she was also a survivor and was horrified by Jamie's attitude. I've never heard him talk like that before, she said, hands shaking as she dried a plate. Is this how he really feels about assault victims? She feared confronting him would end their relationship, so we developed a plan for her to safely express her concerns. Jamie actually listened to Lexi's perspective about victim blaming, though he initially defended himself by saying it was different with family. You don't understand. Emma's always been dramatic. We have to be tough with her. Lexi asked him to imagine if someone had said those things to her after her assault. That created the first crack in his certainty. I could see it in his eyes when he looked at me across the room afterward. Jamie's conversation with Lexi made him unusually quiet for days. He stopped making comments about my assault but still wouldn't apologize. I decided to leverage his discomfort by asking innocent questions about Lexi when my other brothers were present. How's Lexi doing? She seemed upset the other night when you guys were joking about assault victims. I wanted to create similar situations for my other brothers, but they didn't all have partners I could enlist. I recruited allies from their social circles through careful networking. My brother Alex mentioned a teammate whose sister had been assaulted but didn't connect this to his own behavior. I arranged to meet this teammate, Marcus, at a game and built a relationship with him, eventually sharing how my brothers had responded to my assault. Marcus was outraged but understood that confronting Alex directly might expose my strategy. We devised subtle ways to make Alex uncomfortable with his own views, like bringing up assault cases during team workouts, but presenting them as hypotheticals. What kind of person blames their own sister for being assaulted? Marcus asked casually during weight training. Alex found himself publicly taking positions that contradicted his private behavior, not realizing he was the subject of the conversation. Meanwhile, the police investigation into Tyler progressed with another victim coming forward. Tyler claimed all encounters were consensual, and the prosecutor warned me the case would be challenging without more evidence. I spotted Tyler talking to my brother Drax again in the campus cafeteria, directly warning Drax about him might backfire, making me seem vindictive. Instead, I anonymously sent campus security footage of Tyler following me to the Gender Studies department as part of their Campus Safety Awareness Week. The awareness campaign featured the footage without identifying either of us. Drax recognized Tyler's behavior pattern from the video and began questioning his lab partner's character. I needed financial independence to ensure I could leave if my plan failed. My current jobs barely covered minimum expenses, so I applied for a resident advisor position that would provide free housing the following semester. The RA interview required a family reference, but asking my brothers would reveal my plans. I asked Aunt Zoe to pose as my guardian since she shared my last name. My brother Dale discovered my application papers in my backpack when he was snooping through my things. He assumed I was planning to bring shame on the family by living with strangers, and confronted me at dinner, unwittingly revealing my plans to everyone. So you're just going to abandon your family now? He demanded, throwing the papers on the table. After everything we've done for you? The family dinner exploded into arguments about my betrayal. Jamie accused me of being ungrateful for their years of protection, but their controlling behavior only validated my need for independence. I finally spoke my truth about how their protection had always been about control. My brothers tried interrupting and dismissing me, talking over me as they always had. Months of therapy had strengthened my resolve, and I continued speaking even as they attempted to silence me. You don't get to decide when I'm done talking anymore, I said, my voice stronger than I'd ever heard it. You've been talking over me my entire life, and I'm finished with it. Jamie accused me of being dramatic and ungrateful for their years of protection. I calmly took out my phone and played a recording of them joking about my assault from a family dinner 2 months earlier. She was practically advertising with that outfit, Alex's voice said, followed by laughter. Maybe now she'll listen when we tell her how to dress, Dale added. The room fell completely silent as they heard their own voices. My brothers claimed the recording recording was taken out of context, that they were just blowing off steam because they were angry about what happened to me. I told them I had dozens more examples documented and was prepared to share everything with our extended family unless they truly listened to me for once. My brothers reluctantly agreed to hear me out, but set a time limit of 30 minutes as if they were doing me a favor. I prepared a concise presentation of their behavior patterns since mom died, showing them a timeline of controlling comments and actions they'd made over the years. They claimed they were just looking out for me, so I contrasted their treatment of me versus how they treated each other. When Sean came home drunk last month, you made jokes about his hangover. When I had one drink at a party, I was asking for trouble. Explain the difference. Sean was the first to admit he could see some problems with their behavior, but insisted they never meant harm. I explained how impact matters more than intent when it comes to psychological damage. You don't get to decide whether you hurt me, I said. That's not how it works. I wanted them to understand the connection between their protection and their response to my assault. They struggle to see the correlation, so I brought in articles about benevolent sexism and protective control from my psychology coursework. Jamie became defensive about being called sexist. We're not sexist. We love you. That's why we protect you. This defensiveness prevented real listening, so I asked him to simply listen to Lexi's recorded statement about how their attitudes affected her. Hearing Lexi's perspective made Jamie visibly uncomfortable. I couldn't believe the man I love could think this way about women, her voice said from my phone. It makes me wonder what he'd say if something happened to me. Jamie claimed Lexi was influenced by me, so I revealed that several of their friends and girlfriends had independently expressed concern about their attitudes when I'd quietly reached out to them. My brother Alex accused me of turning people against them, which only deflected from personal responsibility. I asked them to explain why so many people were disturbed by their behavior if it was truly appropriate. The question hung in the air as they struggled to answer. Dale finally asked what I wanted from them, his tone suggesting he expected unreasonable demands like a formal public apology or financial compensation. I surprised them by requesting they attend a single session with my therapist to understand trauma responses. They reluctantly agreed to one therapy session, but insisted on a male therapist. I arranged an appointment with Dr. Raj, who specialized in helping men understand sexual violence. The night before therapy, Drax came to my room to talk privately. He seemed more concerned about family reputation than my well-being, asking if I was going to tell some stranger all our family business. I showed him research on how victim support affects recovery outcomes. Did you know that victim blaming by family members can cause more PTSD symptoms than the assault itself? I asked him. That's what you guys did to me. Drax admitted he'd stopped talking to Tyler after seeing more red flags in his behavior, but still questioned why I hadn't fought back harder. I explained Free's responses and showed him research on trauma physiology, how the body sometimes shuts down during assault rather than fighting. It's not a choice, I explained. Your body makes that decision for you. During the therapy session, my brothers maintained defensive postures, arms crossed and jaws tight. Dr. Raj skillfully used examples from their own lives to illustrate vulnerability. When he asked about times they'd felt powerless, tiny cracks appeared in their unified front. Dr. Raj asked them to imagine their response if a man had said such things about our mother. What would your father have done if someone suggested your mother deserved to be assaulted because of her clothing? The hypothetical struck too close to home, and Jamie abruptly left the session, slamming the door behind him. The remaining brothers tried to follow Jamie, their default reaction always to maintain unity. Dr. Raj calmly noted how they prioritized sticking together over discovering truth. Surprisingly, Sean made the choice to stay and continue listening. I want to understand, he said quietly. I don't think I've been a good brother. I wanted to build on Sean's willingness to engage, but knew pushing too hard might trigger backlash. I suggested we all take a week to process before meeting again. During our week apart, I focused on my court case against Tyler. The prosecutor warned me that my brother's statements about my behavior and clothing undermined my credibility. I asked them not to speak to anyone about the case if they couldn't be supportive. Sean approached me privately to apologize, but his apology focused on how he never thought about it that way, rather than acknowledging the harm he'd caused. I explained why intent doesn't erase impact, and asked for concrete changes in his behavior. Sean promised to stop making jokes about my assault, but I needed active allyship, not just passive improvement. I asked him to speak up when our other brothers made inappropriate comments. Sean tried standing up to Jamie at dinner when he made a victim-blaming comment about a news story. Maybe she shouldn't have been jogging alone at night, Jamie had said, and Sean replied, that's messed up, man. Nobody asks to be attacked. Jamie immediately shut him down and mocked him for becoming a feminist, and Sean experienced firsthand how I'd felt for months, dismissed and belittled for challenging their views. I found Sean researching sexual assault statistics late at night in the kitchen. He was shocked by the prevalence rates, particularly among college women. I realized how sheltered all my brothers had been from women's realities. 1 in 5 women, Sean. Look around your classes tomorrow and count. Alex overheard Sean defending me to their friends at a barbecue, saying they'd been total assholes about my assault. Alex interpreted this as family disloyalty and confronted both of us when we got home. We don't air family business to outsiders, he hissed. The confrontation escalated into a full family argument, but this time Sean stood firmly by my side. Emma's not the one who should be ashamed, he told them. We are. Jamie accused Sean of being brainwashed by feminist propaganda, which only proved how far we still had to go. I maintained calm during their argument, documenting their words on my phone. Remaining detached was emotionally exhausting, so I excused myself to call Amber for support. While on the phone in my room, I overheard Drax defending me to the others. Maybe we should actually listen to her, he said. We've been treating her like she's still 12. His arguments were still problematic in subtle ways, focusing more on my age than my autonomy, but I recognized that true understanding would take time. The prosecutor called with news that Tyler had been accused by a third victim, which strengthened our case considerably. The new victim was afraid to come forward officially, so I arranged for her to meet with Harper for legal guidance. I needed to focus on the upcoming preliminary hearing, but family tensions were consuming my energy and affecting my sleep. I decided to move in with Amber temporarily, leaving a detailed letter explaining why I needed space to heal. Leaving triggered panicked calls and texts from my brothers. Dad would be so disappointed, Dale texted. You're tearing this family apart, from Jamie. Their concern was still largely about appearance and control rather than my well-being. I maintained firm boundaries about my need for space, responding only to messages that didn't attempt to manipulate me. Jamie came to Amber's apartment demanding I return home, pounding on the door and creating a scene. His approach was commanding rather than respectful. You're coming home right now. This has gone far enough. Amber refused to let him in and threatened to call police if he didn't leave immediately. She's not your property, she told him through the door. She's a grown woman who can make her own decisions. Jamie's confrontation with Amber made local social media when she posted about it, calling out toxic family dynamics while obscuring names and specific details. When a grown man shows up at my door demanding his adult sister come home immediately, like she's a runaway teenager, we have a serious problem with male control, she wrote. The post was shared widely in campus circles, and my brothers realized their behavior was now visible to others. Sean reached out with a genuine apology for everyone's behavior. I've been thinking about everything, his text read. We've been awful to you. I'm so sorry, Emma. Apologizing wasn't enough without changed behavior, so I agreed to meet just him for coffee to discuss next steps. During coffee with Sean, I learned that Drax had discovered more disturbing information about Tyler's history with women. He'd overheard Tyler joking about scoring with drunk girls with other lab partners. Sharing this information might compromise the legal case, so Sean agreed to keep Drax's discoveries confidential until the detective could properly investigate. Sean revealed that our brothers were having private conversations about their behavior. Jamie had actually cried during one of these talks, but pride prevented him from admitting wrongdoing to me directly. Sean suggested a family meeting with Aunt Zoe as mediator, since they respected her as mom's sister. I proposed the family meeting for the following weekend, but Jamie initially refused to participate, calling it emotional blackmail. Sean and Drax had to convince him that family unity depended on it, knowing that appealing to his leadership role would work better than appealing to empathy. Preparing for the meeting caused intense anxiety. I had nightmares about them ganging up on me again, dismissing everything I said. But avoiding confrontation wouldn't lead to healing, so I worked with my therapist on grounding techniques for emotional regulation during difficult conversations. Aunt Zoe arrived a day early to hear everyone's perspective individually. My brothers tried minimizing their behavior to her, claiming I was exaggerating and always sensitive. With their permission, she shared the recordings I had provided, letting them hear their own words from an outsider's perspective. Hearing themselves through Aunt Zoe shocked some of my brothers. Do you really think your mother would approve of how you've spoken about your sister? She asked them. Jamie and Dale remained defensive, so Aunt Zoe shared stories about how similar attitudes had affected our mother's life with Dad's family. Your mother cried to me because your father's brothers told her she was overreacting when their friend made sexual comments about her at a family barbecue, she told them. Your father stood by silent, just like you boys have been doing to Emma. Learning about Mom's experiences with Dad's family created an emotional breakthrough, especially for Jamie, who had always idolized our father. But emotional reactions alone wouldn't change ingrained behaviors, so Aunt Zoe outlined specific expectations for moving forward, including therapy, education about sexual assault, and concrete changes in how they spoke about women. The family meeting lasted hours as layers of miscommunication were addressed. Jamie finally admitted that his protection had come from fear of failing Mom. She made me promise to keep you safe right before she died, he said, voice breaking. I thought I was doing what she wanted. Real change would require ongoing commitment, so we established weekly check-ins with clear accountability measures. Meanwhile, Tyler's preliminary hearing was scheduled for the following month. My brothers wanted to attend in support, which surprised me. I had to explain why their previous comments could harm my credibility if Tyler's attorney called them as witnesses. If they ask if my own family ever suggested I was partly responsible, I can't lie under oath, I explained. Drax revealed he had text messages from Tyler that contained incriminating statements about girls who ask for it. Submitting them might reveal Drax's connection to the case and could be embarrassing for him among his friends, but he decided to do it anyway. We consulted with the prosecutor about proper evidence submission to ensure it would be admissible. The prosecutor added Drax's evidence to the case file, which was a significant development. Tyler's attorney requested a delay to review the new evidence, so the emotional strain of waiting continued to affect my academic performance. I was failing 2 classes despite studying whenever I wasn't working or dealing with legal matters. My brothers noticed my struggling grades and offered to help, but their approach was still somewhat controlling. You need to drop one of your jobs rather than, how can we support you? I had to establish boundaries about academic assistance, accepting help with studying but refusing to let them make decisions for me. Dale surprised me by researching trauma's effect on concentration and memory. His research led to him questioning his own role in my struggles. I found studies showing that family support is the biggest factor in recovery from trauma, he told me, showing me articles on his laptop. We really messed up, didn't we? He approached me with his first genuine apology, without qualifiers or explanations. News of Tyler's pattern reached campus administration through official channels. They initially hesitated to take action during ongoing legal proceedings, citing due process concerns. I connected with student activists to pressure for interim protective measures, leading to a sit-in at the administration building. The student activism resulted in Tyler's temporary suspension pending investigation. This made him desperate and unpredictable, as his academic future was now at stake. Campus security implemented safety measures for witnesses, including escort services and monitoring of restricted areas. Tyler attempted to contact Drax to pressure him into retracting his evidence, ambushing him after lab. You're ruining my life over your crazy sister's lies, he said. This aggressive approach backfired spectacularly. Drax recorded the interaction on his phone and submitted it as additional evidence of witness intimidation. With mounting evidence from multiple victims and witness testimony, Tyler agreed to a plea deal to avoid a full trial. The terms seemed insufficient for the harm caused: probation, counseling, and community service. But the prosecutor explained that this outcome was unfortunately common in first offense sexual assault cases. I prepared an impact statement for the sentencing hearing, wanting the judge to understand the full scope of damage. Writing my impact statement brought up intense emotions I thought I'd processed. I cried through most of my first draft, anger and grief pouring onto the page. The process was also empowering, allowing me to reclaim my narrative. I included both the assault's impact and my brother's response as compounding trauma that had affected every aspect of my life. I wanted my brothers to hear my statement before court, but feared their reactions would unsettle me before the hearing. I asked Dr. Raj to be present when I shared it with them, providing a professional buffer for their responses. Reading my statement to my brothers was one of the hardest things I'd ever done. I saw the impact of my words on their faces: shame, regret, and finally, understanding. Their reactions showed genuine empathy for the first time, creating real potential for family healing. Jamie, still struggling the most with accountability, asked to speak privately after everyone else left. Instead of defending himself as I expected, he showed me journals our mother had kept during her illness. "When I know I'll be gone, watch over Emma," she'd written. "Don't let men treat her like I was treated." I learned she had been grooming them to be my protectors out of her own fears, never imagining they would become what she feared. Understanding Mom's influence created empathy for my brother's misguided behavior. Their protection came from love, even if it manifested as control. But explaining didn't excuse their actions, so we acknowledged the complex family dynamics while maintaining accountability for the harm caused. At the sentencing hearing, my brothers sat silently supportive behind me. Seeing Tyler in person brought flashbacks: the smell of his cologne, the sound of his voice. I used the grounding techniques I'd practiced with my therapist, focusing on the weight of my feet on the floor and the texture of the paper in my hands. Delivering my impact statement while looking directly at Tyler reclaimed my power. "What you took from me wasn't just my sense of safety, but my trust in the people I loved most," I said, not looking at my brothers but knowing they heard me. The judge's sentence still felt inadequate given the impact on multiple victims' lives, but I reminded myself that my healing wasn't dependent on his punishment. After court, reporters wanted to interview me about the case. Public exposure threatened my privacy and mental health recovery. My brothers formed a protective circle around me as we left, this time respecting my wishes rather than controlling me. "She's not commenting," Jamie told them firmly. "Please respect her privacy." Back home, we held a family meeting to discuss moving forward. Old patterns threatened to reemerge as Jamie started listing rules for my protection, but I interrupted him mid-sentence. "That's exactly what got us here," I said calmly. "We created a family contract with explicit boundaries and expectations, including respecting each other's autonomy and never dismissing each other's experiences. I still planned to become an RA and gain independence, but now approached it as growth rather than escape." My brothers helped me prepare for my final interview, respecting that this was my decision regardless of the outcome. The podcast Harper and I created expanded to discuss family healing after trauma. Maintaining privacy remained important to protect my brother's growth process, so we carefully anonymized details while sharing authentic experiences about how families can heal after initially responding poorly to disclosure. 1 year after the assault, my brothers surprised me by organizing a reclaiming ceremony. They worried they were centering themselves in my healing, so they asked Onyx from my support group to guide them in creating a truly supportive event. It was simple, just us, Aunt Zoe, and my closest friends gathering to acknowledge how far we'd all come. 2 years after that horrible night, our family bears little resemblance to what it once was. I did become an RA, which gave me the independence I needed while still maintaining connection with my brothers. The experience transformed all of us in unexpected ways. Sean is now a peer educator on consent and healthy relationships, turning his shame into purpose. Drax switched his major to psychology with a focus on trauma recovery, often consulting me before making assumptions about women's experiences. Even Jamie, the most resistant to change, eventually attended a men's accountability group and now calls out his friends for the same behaviors he once exhibited. Our family therapy continued for 18 months, uncovering generational patterns that had shaped all of our perspectives. Aunt Zoe became a permanent part of our support system, bringing maternal wisdom without the controlling fear that had influenced our mother. As for me, I graduated with honors despite the trauma's impact on my education, and now work part-time at the same women's resource center that once saved me. The court case against Tyler resulted in consequences that felt inadequate compared to the harm, but watching my brothers transform their understanding of protection, consent, and respect showed me a different kind of justice. My brothers still drive me home sometimes, and yes, they'll still pick up tampons when needed. But now these acts come from respect rather than control. We're learning, imperfectly but genuinely, what it means to be family by choice rather than obligation. I still struggle with trust and flashbacks, but I no longer struggle alone. The greatest revenge wasn't destroying my brothers for failing me. It was rebuilding a family strong enough to never fail each other that way again.